size vehicles. So with that, staff is recommending that you adopt a resolution approving the project with the conditions, which includes condition number 40 about the 18-foot depth for the driveway. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for staff?
I have a question. So if we do move the garage back and impact the flagstone path, does that have any bearing on the historic board's ruling on this, or does that impact the cottage criteria or anything like that?
So we did double check, and the path was not identified as a character defining feature, although it is a quite charming characteristic of the property. We also did reach out to our consulting historian to make sure that a shift west would not change any of the findings, and she confirmed that it would not, so that would be okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite the applicant to come up and address the Planning Commission.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Brian Congleton. I have a voice today, and Thomas Hood does not. He has laryngitis. And so you get the loudmouth in the partnership here, and I apologize for that. You know, we are frankly stunned and concerned about this issue of moving a garage back into the front of a historic resource to address an issue that apparently came up recently on another project on Carpenter, a very busy street, where apparently a car parked in the driveway in front of a garage either backed into the lane or projected into the lane or was near the lane. And based on that, tail wagging the dog, this now becomes a prima facie ordinance that is just been said is not an ordinance, and it's not been codified, it's not been studied. And the request here is to ask property owners to deal with the responsibility of improper car parking rather than creating and passing and enforcing ordinances to create proper car parking. Now, I would pose to you several things. The first is that I was told by staff that each condition is different. As in, a very busy Carpenter Street is a different condition than a very quiet Santa Fe Street. I don't think the two should be compared, and I certainly don't think a comparison should result in impacting this historic property or my client's use of it. The second thing is that 16 feet 8 inches is longer than just about any car except a Cadillac Sedan DeVille. And parking a car in front of the garage would not project into the pavement. So I really think it's a non-issue. In addition to, the recent hefty discussion about that garage in front of that historic resource and the compromise that was reached between the HRB and my clients, with my clients giving up part of the square footage of the garage in favor of the view cone on the house, this just kind of slaps in the face of that. It makes no sense to us. So I would ask that if that is a place that you want to go, rather than having people park properly. The last part of it is that the entrance to the house is directly behind the garage. It's around the corner of the house. To give you a little background, that house is the twin, it's sometimes called the twin, to a house called Sunwise Turn up on Paloux. It has the same front entrance which faces Paloux. And it appears to me, as I look at the location of this house, that the original builders of this house went to Mr. Comstock and said, we want to buy those plans and we want to build that house. So the front door of the house faces the side in the corner behind where the garage is. And to push the garage 18 inches towards the house would be an impact to the house. And the last thing I would say is this is kind of a Friday surprise issue. Staff gave us an interesting Friday surprise issue when we went before the HRB, when they arbitrarily said, well, we think in the interest of the historic resource, we want you to reduce the size of the garage from 250 square feet to 200 square feet. We were not told about that in advance, and no reason was given for that other than protecting the resource. Ergo, the compromise we reached. Now we got a Friday surprise. This literally came last Friday, the first we knew that staff was considering recommending this change in the design. We've gone through months and months of hearings and waiting, and my clients very much want to build and start using and living in their historic property. So I would ask you to apply reason and determine that there is not an issue here because cars aren't that big, and there's not an issue here because the ordinance should be created for proper parking, and there's not an issue here because this is historic and my client should be allowed to use it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian. Okay, at this time, I'm going to invite any other members of the public who would like to make a comment on this application to come forward.
Good evening. My name's Breck Lutz. My wife and I are the owners of this Comstock home. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I've become a regular here now through 4 hearings with the Historical Review Board. And I've gotten to know Carmel very well. I first of all want to thank you all for your time and commitment in doing this job and being planning commissioners. I realize this is a volunteer position and that it is having people like you that care about maintaining and creating the fabric and character of this community is what attracted us to Carmel in the first place. So I applaud you and I appreciate your service. Having said that, I will also say that it's been a bit of a double-edged sword for us personally in our attempts to revitalize what is currently a decayed and dilapidated historical Comstock home. And we're trying to create a home to be enjoyed by us and our family, as well as ensure the continuance viability of this as a continuing member of the storybook homes that are, quite frankly, a huge part of the visitor draw to the city of Carmel. I can't tell you, literally on Saturdays and Sundays, we have many, many people walking down the street doing the tour, looking at our home. And so it's what draws people to Carmel. I know this probably seems a bit excessive for us to object to a 1 foot, 5-inch difference in the setback for the garage. I understand that seems, why is it a big deal? Well, I guess it's a big deal for a few reasons, but one of the reasons is that, as Brian just said, through this process, we feel like the goalposts have been moved on us multiple times during this process. We're expecting one thing and something new comes up, and this is just another example of it. And what it's ended up costing us is delays, unnecessary changes that have required us through this process to change things, compromise on what we wanted, and now we've ultimately ended up with a home that isn't exactly what we wanted and exactly what we wanted to create, which I think was a showpiece for this city. When we were in contract to purchase this home in December of 2020, we set up a call with our initial architectural consultant, the city planning department, where we presented a plan for expansion, much like what you have in front of you, and that we're told that as long as we adhered to setbacks and did not change the frontal view of the historical structure from the street, we should not have any problem with the proposed expansion. We then did our research and hired the two most experienced architects in town on Comstock's historical structures with HRB experience, Brian Congleton and Thomas Hood. Sorry, I'm getting lost here. City historic, proposing met the historical review standards. However, the HRB knew, and we also hired the old historical consultant that the city had used for years to advise us on how to plan this. However, the HRB's new historical consultant found differently, and we were forced to completely change our plan and compromise the usability of the home to comply with the HRB planning historical consultant standards. At the same time, the planning department came up with an additional objection at the 11th hour to the 250-foot garage we proposed that became more desperately needed as we lost significant storage in the storage in the home with our redesign. The planning department proposed a 200 square foot garage, even though historical consultant had no issue with the size of the garage or the effect on the views. Through 3 separate hearings with the HRB, we were finally forced to compromise once again and reduce the size of our garage. In all, this process has caused us a 4-month delay and a huge cost differential for increased architectural costs, new design construction costs, and a 40% increase in construction costs due to construction cost creep as a result of the inflation in construction. Now we're told that we must change our design that has been a part of our plan since we submitted 5 months ago.
Sir, your time's up.
Okay, well, I'm going to finish real quick.
Please do.
So after this hearing, we walked countless properties over the last 5 days in and around Carmel and found distances from the front of the garage to the street as little as 6 feet. We found very few that had anywhere close to even 16 feet 7 inches. We were told this is a result of what's happening on Carpenter. Carpenter has about 200 cars go by an hour. Santa Fe has 1 or 2. In addition to that, our cars, which are X3s, are 15 feet 7 inches. An X5 is 16 feet 1 inch. There are very few cars that would ever stick out. Last point.
I'm going to ask you to summarize this quickly.
The way we park our car on those streets is we park at an angle into the street to make sure that we don't go onto the street. Anyway, I hope that you guys will take into consideration approving the project without the change.
Thank you.
Sorry to go over.
Okay, we have Carol Halls online. She'd like to speak to us about this application. Carol, you have the floor.
You can unmute yourself, Carol.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I just wanted to support Brian Congleton on this particular issue. I've been on 3 tours, being on the HRB, and I think that moving the garage back would impact the side entrance and a walkway that's kind of a, if not historic, important aspect of the home. And I would go with Brian's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Can you ask her to clarify if she's speaking as a resident or a member of the HRB?
Yeah, Carol, can you clarify that you're speaking as a resident and not as a member of the HRB?
Absolutely, as a resident.
All right. Thank you, Carol. All right. Is there anyone else from the in the public here who would like to speak? Looks like Thomas coming forward.
I may do this in a whisper. I'll be brief. This is just a matter of housekeeping. We brought this up with Marnie right before the hearing. In the resolution, page 9 of 12, condition 22 says landscape plan required. What we just clarified with Marnie is there is no new landscape plan required. We do have a provision for replanting understory or over canopy trees or contribute to the city's tree replanting program. If we do intend to put in any new trees on the property, we'll work with the city forester, but I just ask, just for clarification, that item 22 be struck as a mandated requirement to have a landscape plan. That's it.
Thank you, Thomas. Hope you feel better. Anyone else in the public would like to speak to the Planning Commission regarding this application? Okay, I don't see anybody in the chamber coming up, and I don't see anybody online, so I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Locke, would you like to begin?
Yeah, so I actually sympathize with the architects on this one. I think that staff did make a good suggestion to move the garage forward, and given other locations, that probably would be a very prudent thing to do. But I will agree that Santa Fe is not even close to the same traffic level as some of our other busy streets. Given the historic nature of this property and our desire to maintain these properties for the good of our village, I think I would go along with keeping it at the proposed distance. That's really all I have to say. I think the project's a really nice project, and it's a really beautiful little house.
Thank you, Commissioner Locke. Commissioner Karapetkoff, would you like to make your comments?
I was just trying to check the dimensions of BMW X3 to figure out exactly how long and how wide it is. I mean, from my perspective, it's a beautiful house. It's a treasure of Carmel. I think our goal should be to allow the public to see as much as possible. And I agree with the applicant that people come to Carmel to see houses like that. So the question is, how do we position the garage in a way that you can see as much as possible from the street? And I'm a bit concerned about the size of the garage. We're going beyond the minimum of 10 feet. We're going to 11 feet, plus this oriel windows, which is another 2 feet, I think. So maybe a total of 13 feet of closed space. So that's something that would not allow the public to see half of the house. And I would love to explore ways to reduce that block, if possible. So if I understand that, this has been discussed. I wasn't involved in these discussions. I think that if the purpose is really to use the garage as a garage, to park cars in it, it does make sense to try to keep the garage to the minimum, just because of the nature of the house. I think we should continue to ask the applicant to use the minimum of 10 by 20 feet. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Karapetkoff. Commissioner Delch, your comments, please.
I want to thank the applicant for enduring all this and doing what appears to be all the right things. These historic resources do introduce quite a few more hurdles. With that said, when a property of this significance finally gets to the Planning Commission, it's my experience and my belief that we really need to defer to the Historic Resource Board that has put all those hurdles in front of the applicants. And in this case, I'll have to just disagree with my colleague on asking for anything further in terms of reduction of the garage. You've been through that with the Historic Resource Board. It's probably been one of the primary conversations that's been going on. You got past the goalposts. I feel like I would be moving them to ask for more at this point. So I think it's fine where it is. Thank you, staff, for the recommendation. It was warranted out of safety, and I understand that as well. But I think, as my colleagues have said, in this case, I think you leave the garage where it is. It's a beautiful project. I'm ready to approve it.
Thank you, Commissioner Delch. Commissioner Locke? Oh, Commissioner Allen, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's why I want to double down.
So I sympathize with the applicant, and I know that this has been a long process, and so I feel like I'm ready to approve it as is. I appreciate the fact that they've made compromises along the way, And I believe that having a garage this size allows them to at least have some space to pull in and you know, if they want to use it for storage or whatever. But I'm ready to approve this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. I just wanted to say that I think it needs to be stated that when there's a detached garage that's being proposed, staff is required to make certain findings, and one of those is safety. And so staff is just going through the process that they normally have to do. Now, when an applicant or a homeowner buys a historic house, there's another hurdle in place. You know, it just goes with the territory. You've got a really significant, beautiful Comstock, cottage there. And there's a lot of value in that, which you have as the owner. But there's also some additional steps you have to go through. And it's a process. So having said that, I looked online. The average length of a car these days is about 16 feet. I'm going to support it the way it is. I think the findings can be made that it is safe the way it is proposed. So having said that, we have a resolution, which I have not opened.
And Mr. Chair, while you were opening that, I just wanted to throw in that staff, the request was made for a removal of a condition, I believe it was 22. Yeah, and staff was supportive of that as well. Yeah, I don't think we had a chance to respond on that, but staff's definitely supportive of that removal as well. So if you want to include that in your motion.
So condition 22 is the landscape. So staff's going to remove that, and I'm going to recommend we remove condition 40, I believe it was. Is it 40? Yeah. Yeah, driveway depth. So the garage right now, it's not over 250 square feet, is it? It's within the guidelines.
It's 235.
Right? Yeah, so it's fine the size it is, yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm going to make a motion that we accept staff's resolution with the removal of special condition item number 22 and 40.
Second.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes?
Commissioner Karpetkov?
No.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Okay, that brings us to the item number 6 on the public hearing, am I right? Yeah. Brown. Okay, this is another design study. This is DS 23092, consideration of final design study and associated coastal development permit for the demolition of more than 50% of the exterior walls of a 1,755 square foot single-story residence on an 8,000 square foot lot and construction of a new 2-story additions. And it's on the corner of Guadalupe Street and 4th Avenue. Can we have staff report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, but we do want to note that Commissioner Allen
It
has
has
been
to recuse, so Commissioner Allen has recused herself.
due proximity.
Everybody else is good? So, all right, staff report, please.
All right, thank you, Chair. So the next project before you is a final design study for the Brown residence. This project is located at the southwest corner of Guadalupe and 4th Avenue. It is within the Block 45 specific plan area, which has the historic stone wall that surrounds the block. This particular site is an 8,000 square foot lot. The existing residence is 1,755 square feet, and it is a single story. The proposed residence includes 1- and 2-story additions, just over 1,000 square feet. So we have had 2 prior concept hearings on this project, the first on August 9th, 2023, and then on October 11th. The Commission's direction to the applicant was to eliminate the vaulted ceiling above the family room, and that has been done. Also to modify the 2nd floor yoga terrace to have a 6-foot setback from the south property line. That is currently reflected in the plans as well. We also conducted a volume study after the concept was accepted and the project did pass volume. Last, the Applicant has reduced the front door from 8 feet down to 7 feet 6 inches. So this is a comparison of the original concept, which is on the top left, the revised concept, and then the final design. So you can see the progression of the vaulted ceiling space being eliminated and the reduction in mass associated with that. This next slide shows the evolution of the front entry being reduced down to a more human scale. And then the changes from the yoga terrace, from the original cable rail design with a much larger footprint to the solid rail design, and then the final design with that 6-foot setback, which is on the right-hand side there. So we have gone over the final details before, and these have not changed from the concept review. So the roof material is proposed to be a comp shingle. The siding on the home would be cedar, tongue and groove, horizontal siding. There's some thin stone veneer proposed at the front entry. Windows and doors would be aluminum clad wood in regal brown. Staff evaluated all the light fixtures and they do comply with our standards. So along the alleyway, which is the west side of the property, there's a shared driveway to the Block 45 residence. The existing fence is proposed to be reconstructed at the same height and style. The applicant has also proposed a 9 to 9.5 foot tall privacy hedge. This has been proposed from the original concept design and has been carried through to the final. And this was in order to ensure privacy between the neighbors to the west of the private drive and the project site. So this is a line of sight diagram that shows how that hedge maintains privacy between folks on the private alley and the project site. However, it was brought to staff's attention that the landscape plan shows the hedge stopping just past the ADU. I did speak with the architect and clarified that the landscape plan is the design that's being proposed. It was not their intent to carry the hedge all the way down to the corner. And staff finds that this provides sufficient privacy to the west neighbors along that private road. So our recommendation is that you adopt a resolution approving the final design and the associated coastal development permit. And with regards to special conditions, staff is recommending that we strike number 34. Copper gutters are not proposed on this project. And then, at the commission's discretion, if you do feel that that privacy hedge should go the full length of the private drive, you could add a special condition to that effect. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for staff?
No.
No questions. Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite the applicant up and make their presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Anatoly Astritsov. I'm the architect, and I'm here on behalf of the owners, Mr. and Mrs. David Brown. Thank you for your time for this special meeting. Yes, as one of the owners previously said, it's a big deal. Thank you. And thank you for your presentation, Marnie. We complied with all the previous conditions and your recommendations and requirements. Regarding that landscaping hedge behind the ADU, we didn't think it was necessary for privacy, and also there is access to the crawl space on that side, and there will be also a station for irrigation. It might be not even functional to access it and to maintain the house on that side if we will continue the hedge. But again, it's in your hands. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Anatoly? Thank you.
And I'm sorry I missed my time today for the site meeting and getting older. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to invite any other members of the public that would like to comment on this application to come up at this time.
Oh, no, I'm good. Oh, yeah. I need more rest.
Hi, I'm Mary Kenny, and I'm a resident just west of the Brown property. First of all, I want to thank each of you, along with the planning staff, for your hard work to mitigate the impacts, at least what you could decide upon for this project. And along those lines, and related to the hedge, you approved a 9 to 9.5 foot hedge to block much of the structure. I do hope you will consider, if it's not this particular hedge, if it's not a Texas privet, maybe something that will carry all the way to the end. Because really, it's my neighbor to the north that gets the brunt of that, the back of that ADU. So I think if she could have some sort of screening, some sort of green screening, would be helpful. I don't know what that might be, but maybe we could throw that in there to consider later on. So the other idea I had too, if the Browns like the idea, in addition to the hedge, is to grant a variance for a board-on-board fence at the same height as the hedges with a back-to-back lattice at the top 2 feet. And given that the plants, could die or not do well or be taken out, I feel like possibly putting in a fence like this might be a more permanent screen for both ourselves, our north neighbor, and our south neighbor. But I think most important probably is that hedge and carrying it to the west, to the very north end of that property. Somehow, I understand that there's the access issues behind the ADU, but again, it's really the north neighbor that has the worst of it. And secondly, and maybe this will happen anyway, but I'd like to see the trees on the city property and the historic wall itself along the east border of the property get physical protection. All through the ADU project and the deconstruction of the main house, that area was impacted by construction, parking, trench digging, and other projects without any protection for the trees in the wall. So those trees are critical screen for the east side of the property, and I'm supporting their survival, I feel like, is important to this process. And to end, I want to circle back to you. When this process was just starting last summer, there were comments in a local paper to the effect that the Planning Commission was not diligent in handling this project. In my opinion, those comments were uninformed and unnecessarily cynical. Those of us that actually live in the neighborhood appreciate all the time, thoughtfulness, and action you took to listen and address our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Neil, you wanted to come up. Come on up.
Neil Cruz, just a thought on the Muntins. I'm not sure if I'm reading the plans correctly. It looks like the upper level does not have any. It's just clear windows. There does seem to be some Muntins in the lower floor. I feel that small pane windows add a great deal of feeling to the traditional character of Carmel. As well, we have the building science people and environmental science people that talk about the fact that small pane windows have a way of enhancing the view, not blocking it. So I wanted to bring that up, and that's about it. And I'm praying that our ADU ordinance is right around the corner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. We have another neighbor coming forward. Come on up.
Hi. I'm Joe Pasqua. My wife just spoke a moment ago. I live across the shared driveway. I just want to say that it looks to me like the Browns have done everything that you set forward and that the community asked for, so I'm appreciative of that. Have no complaints about what they've done and what they've proposed. I do, not surprisingly, agree with what my wife said about the screening. And again, depending on what the Browns think of it, I think it could be a good idea to have a fence along there, a taller fence. Also, just thinking about the next generation of owners and residents there, it seems like a more permanent solution. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, is there anyone else in the chambers who would like to come forward at this time? I don't see anybody. Is there any hands up online there?
No one online, Mr. Chair.
Nothing? Okay. I'm going to close the public comments, bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Locke, you want to make some comments on this?
Sure.
Make your comments.
Question for staff before I actually make comments, though. This concept of lattice on top of the fence, that's something, what's the...
So the code does allow for a 6-foot solid fence with 1 foot of lattice on top. Anything taller is at the discretion of the Planning Commission.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the applicant on this, and also the neighbors for all of the contributions and comments that were made in the previous hearings. I think we've actually gotten to a place that people are going to be happy with this. I am very pleased with how these changes have reduced the mass of this building. They've made it look like it ties more together with the ADU. And as we all know, when the ADU went up, it was a very obvious building on this street, but I think this will tie it all together at this time. I'm happy to see that the yoga deck has gotten moved back. I think that's an improvement. And I think I would like to see the hedge carry all the way down. And since this project is under construction at this time, yes, I know there's an irrigation controller and rain sensor and whatnot in that corner. Hopefully you might be able to move it around to the back of the building, or just put the controller on the back. But I think that the neighbors to the west would benefit from a hedge that runs all the way to 4th Avenue versus stopping at that ADU. I mean, I think continuity would be achieved by doing that. And I don't think I really have any other comments on it. I don't know about doing the fence with the lattice on top, although I can understand the comment from the neighbor. I wouldn't want this to turn out looking like a compound, and I think that's, we're already looking at this beautiful stone wall that we have. Do we really want more wall in there? So anyway, those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Locke. Commissioner Delves, your comments?
Yeah, I guess I won't be as pleasant as my colleague, but I'll get to the same point. This project annoyed me from day one. It's because you introduced a mountain modern ADU that we had no control over, nor did staff. You introduced an architectural element 3 feet from a historic wall that not only didn't belong there, it insulted the wall and it insulted the neighborhood. And as predicted several months ago, the result is that you then got to build a mountain modern home. And it's a pretty home. Architecturally, it's lovely. It just doesn't belong there. But because you took that first step without the benefit of any of the wisdom of staff or this body, you pretty much fait accompli, got to build a mountain modern home that doesn't belong there. And I think the dialogue since then has mitigated that significantly, and I think the result is as good as it's going to get. On the wall, I don't think we should take that wall higher. I mean, I think it's a statement, again, that your neighbors want a 12-foot tall wall so they don't have to look at it. And especially the ADU, because it's just a reminder of what happened here. So I think the hedge is the answer. It doesn't have to be a privet. I think a podocarpus
could do it, something will grow quickly and last. But with that, I'm ready to move on.
Thank you. Commissioner Karapetkov, your comments, please.
Yeah, I'm glad to see some changes to the plan. I look at my notes from the last discussion, and my major concern was about this additional glass over the family room and the very tall ceilings. I wouldn't call them vaulted ceilings because they're not vaulted, they're just tall ceilings. And I'm glad to see that this is not in the latest version anymore. I think it improves the house substantially. It reduces bulk and mass. And from the shared road, the house looks much better. I am still not quite sure about the height of the entry door. If you look at A61, it still looks like an 8-foot door, even though in writing we said it's 7.5 feet, but I don't think that the drawings have been updated. And I would love to see that updated so that there's no confusion about the height of the door. That's the entrance. With regards to the hedge, I would love to see the hedge go all the way to 4th Street. I think there's a problem behind the ADU. I saw some boxes there. I think it's a boiler or something with pipes on it. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work out, but there is some kind of obstruction behind the ADU that may create problems. But from a design perspective, it would be lovely if we can have the hedge to go all the way. And these are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so where are we on this? All right, sounds like the commission is of a mind to extend the hedge down to the full length there.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't say so before.
Yeah, okay. I'm in agreement with that. I'm not a big fan of big high fences. They rot, they fall over in high wind. I think vegetation, landscaping is a much better way to handle it. And in my experience, there's a lot more longevity too. So having said that, we have a resolution here with not a whole lot of special conditions. Staff has requested that number 34 be removed. Is that correct? Am I looking at the right resolution?
34.
34? Okay. And we would, I would propose whoever makes the resolution that they add a condition that the hedge be extended to the corner, be the, for just 4th Avenue corner, which would be the northwest, is that right? Northwest corner, yeah. So, one of the commissioners, you want to make that resolution?
Yep.
All right.
I will so move.
Thank you.
Question to Stefan's point about the door. Do we need that as a condition if it's not in the current plan set?
Well, I'm assuming that the door's in the door schedule. Yeah, it's in the door schedule, so
thanks.
I think we're good on that. Okay, you want to go ahead with your proposal?
Yeah, do you want me to go through the whole thing? Sure. I move approval of the final design study and associated coastal development permit for DS 23-092 Brown, as well as adoption of the resolution and special conditions, deleting condition number 34 and adding a special condition that the hedge continue the distance on the west side all the way to 4th Avenue. Is that it? Yeah.
I second.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there any further discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item number 7 on the public hearings. This is a design study, DS 21-376, the Mardani project. This consideration revised concept design study for one-story addition totaling 333 square feet to a one-story, 562 square foot cottage, and construction of a 230 square foot detached garage and front yard setback. It's on Ocean 4 North, east of Guadalupe. We have a staff report, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's okay. So the next item on your agenda is a concept design study for the Mardani residence. As you mentioned, it's located on Ocean Avenue, 4 northeast of Guadalupe. This site is a 2,500 square foot lot. It has an existing cottage that's 562 square feet, and the applicant is proposing one-story additions totaling 333 square feet, as well as a detached garage in the front setback. That would be 230 square feet. So this project also had 2 prior concept hearings, the first on April 12th, 2023, the second one on November 8th. At the first concept, the Planning Commission did accept the design with conditions, and that design was a one-story with an attached garage. The second concept hearing was for a different design. It was for a 2-story project with a detached garage in the front setback, and that design was denied. The applicant has returned with the 1-story design with the detached garage in the front setback instead of the attached garage. So a comparison of the existing conditions and the proposed. A 63 square foot addition is proposed on the west elevation, and then a 270 square foot addition at the rear, which is on the north side. Again, the detached garage is proposed in the front setback. It's 230 square feet in size and is set back 3 feet from the front property line. Again, 6 findings for detached garages in the front yard setback. Staff finds that the garage meets the findings. Number 2, open space with the standard condition, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail. So finding number 2 says at least 50% of the adjacent right-of-way is landscaped or preserved in a natural and forested condition to compensate for the loss of open space. Because this is a lot that's only 25 feet wide, it's just very narrow. And so there's a limited amount of open space in the right-of-way. You can see the green arrow shows the width of the existing driveway. The applicant is proposing to widen the driveway to provide, reasonable access to the garage. However, in doing so, it increases the width to more than 14 feet, and the code specifically limits the width of driveways in the R1 district to no more than 14 feet wide. So staff has added a special condition to address this situation. The neighbor to the east, continues to have some concerns with the addition. So as we've looked at previously, the rear yard of this lot does sit higher than the finished floor level of the house. So the applicant is proposing 3 interior steps up into the bedroom addition. And the neighbor to the east is concerned about their views of the existing oak tree canopy, as well as the sunsets with this proposed addition, as well as impacts, associated with sunlight and air. So in response to these concerns, which were raised at the first concept hearing, the Planning Commission directed the applicant to turn the rear addition from a side-facing gable that faced the east neighbor to a rear-facing gable, which is the graphic depicted at the bottom. The applicant has done that and also lowered the height of the addition by 8 inches. They really are not looking to do significant amounts of excavation, so they would like to work with the existing topography with this rear addition. Neighbors have also expressed concern. We've discussed this before at the prior concept hearings about alterations to the existing on-site circulation pattern, as well as safety backing out onto Ocean Avenue. Staff has looked at this extensively and discussed the issue with our city attorney. And what we have concluded is that the city is not in a position to compel the property owner to allow other people to traverse her property. So without a legally recorded easement, the city is really limited in what we can impose. In that respect, staff is supporting acceptance of the concept design, again, with the condition that the driveway does comply with the municipal code. So with that, staff is recommending acceptance of the concept. And these are the conditions for the concept acceptance. Other than the driveway, nothing too significant. Happy to answer any questions. That concludes my presentation.
Questions for staff from the commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I also want to let you know that our city attorney, Brian Pierrick, is online Zoom if we need his advice as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, this time I'd like to invite the applicant to make their presentation to the commission.
Good afternoon. I'm Thomas Trapani, an attorney for Ms. Azadeh Mardani, the applicant. Ms. Mardani has worked very hard to alter a lot of her initial goals and expectations for enjoyment of this property in order to meet objections raised by her neighbors. And she feels that she is proposing a reasonable compromise for the use and enjoyment of herself and her children for this property at this time. She would like to emphasize that her plans were complicated by the objections of a neighbor that lived in the house that was in between. That neighbor no longer lives there. That neighbor sold the house and it bought it at the same time Ms. Mardani had purchased her house and is no longer there. The new neighbor who lives in the house in between has informed me that she has no objections to the current proposal and the current plans, and she is not here today but because of a work commitment. But she did give me her authority to let you know that she is not opposing any of the plans that they're here today. So whatever objections were raised by a neighbor that no longer lives there and no longer owns the home really complicated this, but are not relevant today and no longer should be considered. Many objections that have been raised are off track because they don't relate to the project that is being proposed. And I'll emphasize the point of the driveway. The driveway issue, as the city attorney has pointed out, and as was said in the prior report that was denied, is that and I'm going to just read the recommendation from that report. It is beyond the purview of the city to require that the applicant provide vehicular access across their property for the benefit of the two western neighbors. And so I think any issue with regard to the driveway is really irrelevant to this current process. I will emphasize that one of the factors that has been raised with regard to this issue is backing out into the street. And this whole idea of backing out has perplexed me with regard to this project, because if you look at the dimensions of the driveway that we're talking about, Mr. Reardon, the neighbor that is 2 doors down, can pull into his lot, pull in, do a turn like this, and go out facing straight and never even come anywhere close to Ms. Mardani's property. There's plenty of room for him to do that. He never has to back out. He can always go out forward. And so his objections really don't seem to, number one, they tried a lawsuit. The lawsuit ended and was dismissed, and there were no changes in the legal status having to do with an easement of the driveway. So the driveway is sort of a red herring that has been in this project for a long time in objections, but it's really not a reason to reject her current proposals. The same is true with regard to the setback issue. There have been some objections raised with the setback of the current existing structure, but any of the improvements that are suggested, the garage and the rear building, will be within current setback guidelines. So that should be a non-issue with regard to the approval as well. I will end there. I would like time for rebuttal in case that's necessary at the end. And I would like to emphasize that we really do appreciate the board's work on this project and time, and the staff's work on this project and the time involved. And none of the objections that have been raised are a reason to deny this current proposal. Let me just ask Ms. Mardani if she's got anything else. Do you have anything else you want me to add?
Actually, yes, regarding the driveway.
If you don't mind.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I made that, proposal that I love to work with the middle neighbor, which is, Jennifer Rice. She already applied to remove the one tree, which is number 3, is blocking her way, basically. And I'm gonna I'm gonna accept all the expenses to modify that, driveway. Intentionally, I don't like to, close anyone's, way. Yes, passing.
Let me just state it this way. Ms. Mardani knows that she has to live with these neighbors, and those neighbors have to live with her.
Yes.
And she appreciates that and will do what she can outside this process to try to compromise and reach a resolution that really meets the needs of all 3 of these properties in terms of coming and going.
Yes.
And everyone has an interest in safety in this location, and she will continue to work in that regard.
Yes, and Mrs. Jennifer Rice, she loves to remove that tree. She thinks this is the better idea. The reason is because right now, Mr. Reardon's sister, whenever she comes there, she parks right in front of his property. And as you saw, her car was on the city property. A lot of time, my, exit has been closed. I have to back up to Ocean. And I never go to, knock their door and tell them that move your car. And by doing this, modification, we all gonna have like a 2 space for, as a parking lot. The other, I believe the advantage of doing this is just every time the first 30 feet from Ocean to our property line, if it's become like a circular driveway, it's gonna be always available, always clear. Let's say there is emergency.
We're off on a tangent because this is not
But
something
I like to say that
the commission needs to take in more of their time about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite any other members of the public that would like to comment on this up to the podium, make their comments.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mark Boyd. My mom's here. She's the owner, the trustee of the property on 6th Avenue, 2 southwest of Carpenter. We share a property line with the applicant. And I just want to start off by saying, even though there's been 10 revised proposals on this property and 3 concept hearings, we appreciate the unwavering dedication this commission has to uphold the design guidelines. I think each member of this commission has made a point that validate the design guidelines that have been approved by the community. These are designs approved by the committee, so we really appreciate that. You saw our property, the windows, the primary windows in the home face the west. The living room, one of the living room windows. You saw if you can show that again, if you wouldn't mind, Marnie, if you have it, the kitchen window. That's the prize of this property. My mom, she just loves this kitchen window, and she has one in her house that's almost identical in the size and the and it's she has a pretty that picture there, and that's exactly where this rear addition is going to be. It's going to pretty much, obliterate that view, and so we think I should point it out today that the existing structure was excavated for, and the staff report is saying that they have to deal with the existing topography. Well, I think that's half true. I think they should, the applicants should consider excavating for the rear addition, and that would lower the rear addition to be we would be very acceptable to that, and then that you could add more windows. You could add. I think this is a win-win for both us and the applicant, because you can add more windows. And you saw the picture of the structure and how the two kind of combined. Let me point out the building and roof form. It's Residential Guidelines 8185 that purport traditional building forms using restraint with variation in building planes. And I think that's a classic example of what the building design guidelines, not that picture, there's one more, that show, I think it's, there, I think it was, yeah, so I think it, well, anyway, shows that right there, that bottom picture. Now I think that's a classic example of what the design guidelines are saying what not to do. So, I will point out that we've been very accommodating, and we just...
Sir, can you summarize?
Yeah, we agreed to pay for the fence, and we're willing to pay for the extra retaining wall that would then be needed for the rear addition. But I really think that the excavation will really make a difference. And I think a staff member pointed out that an air spade would protect the trees, the roots. And so if the applicant decides to hire an engineer that could use an air spade, they can protect the root structures of those wonderful
Okay, thank you. I think we understand your perspective.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the Planning Commission? Please come forward.
Good afternoon, Chair LePage and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Catherine Carlson. I'm the owner of the property on the northwest corner of Ocean and Carpenter that borders Ms. Mardani's property on the east side. My family has owned our home for the past 45 years. Over the past 2 years, my neighbors and I have been presented with 12 different sets of plans, as Mark mentioned, and this has caused a lot of anxiety for us. In fact, the Cass family sold their newly renovated property in part due to their frustration. In between the applicant's 2 prior submissions to the Planning Commission on April 12th and November 8th, it came to light that her property was non-conforming in terms of the setbacks, both that of the composite side yard and that of the side yard on the east side of her property. That's close to my fence. In other words, the plans conditionally approved by the Planning Commission on April 12th were based on the submission of false information showing a 3-foot setback on the east side and a 4 to 6 foot setback on the west side. This was not picked up by the Planning and Building Department. In her current staff report, Ms. Waffle states that the applicant proposes the demolition of more than 50% of the exterior walls. She also describes how the east and composite setbacks do not meet the required distances of 3 feet and 7 feet respectively. She mentions twice that the applicant proposes to retain the non-conforming wall in order to preserve the setback nonconformity, as if preserving the setback nonconformity were the prerogative of the applicant, when in fact, in this case, it is not. What Ms. Waffle also fails to mention is that the applicant will be substantially modifying and adding windows and doors in the existing east, west, and front walls. The applicant is not preserving the setback nonconformities, rather she is modifying and enlarging the nonconformities, which is strictly disallowed under the CMC. The CMC is clear. The nonconforming walls must be considered as demolished and therefore must be rebuilt in accordance with the current code. This question is particularly relevant given the article which appeared in the January 26th to February 1st edition of the Pine Cone with the subtitle Demolition Triggered Setback Rule. It's clear that the Planning and Building Department and the Planning Commission are well aware of the rules regarding alteration of non-conforming structures and the fact that the city defines demolition as removal of more than 50% of the walls. Doing that would trigger the requirement that the non-conforming parts of the home be rebuilt to meet current codes. In this case, setbacks. I'm just quoting from the Pine Cone. So this should be acknowledged up front so that the applicant and the city do not face the unfortunate situation outlined in the Pine Cone. I was careful to comply with the CMC when I renovated my house. Ms. Mardani's former neighbor, Mr. Cass, faced the same issue in renovating his cottage on the west side of her property. He was compelled to modify his renovation plans because his wall was also in the setback. Had he gone ahead with his desired plan, he would have been forced to demolish the entire wall.
Can you summarize?
Yeah. So Mr. Cass was not allowed to bypass the law. Is there one set of laws for some people and another set for others, or does the code apply equally to everyone? Furthermore, the fact that 50% of the existing walls will be demolished would appear to trigger the necessity to include fire sprinklers in the design, and this is also not there. So I recognize Ms. Mardani's right to expand her cottage, but I think she should do so in accordance with the code.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else from the public who'd like to make comments about this? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Timothy Reardon. I own the third cottage in the circular driveway of the three cottages. I object to the setup of the driveway. I come in to my residence very late at night. It's extremely dark on Ocean Avenue. And with the proposed way that she has the driveway set up now, it's very difficult to drive into my cottage, into my circular driveway, if there's any kind of change in the construction of the driveway. Right now it's perfect, but I use that driveway in order to drive in to my residence and then park, and then the opposite side of the circular driveway is where I exit. But the one area where she's proposed to build her garage is what I use to come in to my driveway. And late at night on Ocean Avenue, where it's extremely dark and extremely busy traffic-wise, it makes it very difficult if there's any kind of an upset in the construction of that driveway. The driveway's been the way it has for years and years and years. It's never been changed. All of a sudden now, she wants to change the driveway and the way we come in and come out of our residence. But it's extremely dangerous to have to back out onto Ocean Avenue when it's extremely busy traffic-wise. And I'm talking about late at night where it's very dark. So I object to any kind of a change in the driveway. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application in the chamber? I don't see anybody getting up. Is there anybody online, Leah?
No one online, sir.
Okay. All right, I'm going to close the public comments, bring it back to the commission for their comments and discussion.
I have a question for staff.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Delves.
Staff, could you help me with the concerns about 50% demolition? You know, the things we've been dealing with in the Pine Cone as raised by a previous speaker. Thank you.
So we have two different kind of situations here. The situation referred to in the Pine Cone, the applicant originally intended to preserve a wall and then during construction removed that wall. We're sort of at that design phase right now where, again, the applicant is proposing to retain a wall, which they can do. There's nothing in the code that says that they have to demolish a wall. They can preserve a nonconformity, and that is what is currently proposed. All new construction does have to meet current setbacks. The applicant's aware of that, and that's indicated on their plans. I guess that would be my response to that concern. There's nothing in the code that says if you're removing more than 50% of the walls that you have to demolish your entire home.
I can add on, Marnie covered that all correctly. I would like to speak to the concern raised about fire sprinklers, because that is very important to us as well. And Ms. Carlson's correct, when 50% of walls are even opened up. So the building code is slightly different than the planning code. When you open up 50% of the walls, you're then required to install sprinklers. So typically though, at this phase in a project and looking at design drawings, you're not gonna see a sprinkler plan. So those will get caught in the building permit set. I mean, this project will have to have sprinklers. I can say that for sure.
Yeah,
But the nonconformity, the 50% demolition does not invalidate the nonconformity.
Not until the nonconformity is torn down.
So as long as that one wall stays up there, then, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for staff regarding this? Okay. Commissioner Dell, do you want to make your comments?
Yeah, thank you. So far, to everyone, honestly, for getting this project into a better place. I thought it was going the wrong way last time. I thought the two-story version, it was just too much. And the primary impact being on the neighbor to the east, northeast. And that really did just create a sheer wall against their west-facing windows, but even more so in the backyard, where it was going to be a two-story element just completely blocking everything, and really almost turned a backyard into an enclosed courtyard, which isn't what they wanted. I think there's two primary things here. The first one is in the front, and it's a matter of circulation and safety. And it's remarkable that we have 3 properties that have shared access for 50 years and there's no easements in place. And I've never, that's too bad, because you should have easements in place, and the fact that you don't, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to stop right there, but it's, you really should. So in the context of this thing, I feel like from a safety standpoint, I can only look at it as a single lot. I don't think I can look at it as a shared access, because there's no legal basis to do that. And so I just have to look at what the applicant is proposing. I still have safety concerns just there about how will you, the applicant, get onto Ocean Avenue. I'll just ask this as a question. This is a concept, but I'm going to need to be convinced that there's safe egress for the applicant to get back out, to get out there. So that's in the front, and so that you're proposing a garage. You're proposing a garage that is in the setback by 3 feet, and I'll need to understand that garage being there is not impacting safety, as opposed to it not being there, or as opposed to the garage being pushed further towards the house, or the garage being attached, or the garage being a carport. My gut tells me that the further north that garage moves, the more safety you have, the more ability you have, perhaps to do a 3-point turn and get around. So I'm very concerned about safety and all the permutations that could happen out there, and I'm not going to design it for you, but at this point, I'm concerned about it. In the backyard,
Your neighbor just suggested that if you could excavate, they'd be okay. I think you should listen to that neighbor. It seems like an unnatural, condition at this point to have the house, the back of the house so elevated. I can see that excavation will be difficult back there, and because it's going to be hard to get an excavation vehicle in there. But it would also lower the house and eliminate 3 steps going up.
Is it appropriate to comment?
Not at this time.
Okay.
So those are my comments at this point. This is still a concept. I know you're looking for final, aren't you? No, it's concept. I think it appropriately remains a concept.
Okay, Commissioner Dills. Not at this time. Let us make our comments, and then if I give you time, I have to give it to all the public. So that's all I'm going to say at this time. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say at this time. Thank you. Sir, please do not speak out of turn. What I've said to you is I'll allow you to make comments after we get done. We allowed you to make your comments. Now, please be polite and allow us to make our comments. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. All right. Commissioner Karapatkov.
I think this is probably the most difficult project lately. So extremely small lot size. I wish we had some information how they solved the remodel of the Cass property, the next one, because it's the similar challenge. I'm not sure if there's an ideal solution here. I don't think that there's a perfect solution here. That we have to compromise on something. I think it's reasonable to allow the applicant to remodel their property. And we all know that these are not designed to be kind of real houses. These are cottages on a very, very small lots. So I think the addition in the back, I think they made as much as possible the changes required, and staying in one story is great. Now I understand that there'll always be people unhappy about what's happening in the back, and every time you build something, somebody is upset about it. But one story seems to work fine from my perspective. In terms of excavation, I think we have something in the design book saying that the house should follow the kind of the natural slope. And I think we have a natural slope there, so I don't have a problem with the 3 steps and having the addition a little bit higher, especially if that's being used to capture some sunlight from the south. Usually what happens is the sun comes from the south, and everything that is on the north side of the lot gets dark and cold. And especially if you have small kids, you don't want to do that. So if there's any way to have some windows to get additional sunlight from the south into that addition in the back, or maybe skylights, I don't know. But some way to get that sunlight into the house that will make it much better. About the driveway, again, unfortunate that we don't have anything legal in this area. I'm not sure how to solve that problem, really. I mean, the first proposal where the garage was moved back and attached to the house gave us a little bit more flexibility in terms of keeping the driveway. In the design guidelines, we have a section that talks about sharing driveways, so we want to encourage people to do that as much as possible. We don't want to have, multiple driveways for these small cottages. So if there's a way to position the garage so that it's possible to drive into the garage, but at the same time, this driveway can be used to reach the other 2 properties, the other 2 cottages, that would be ideal. Unfortunately, with this wall that I see on the plan, I don't think it's going to be possible. It's going to be dangerous, and somebody's going to hit that wall. So I think we have to, I wish the neighbors would get together and kind of find a compromise instead of us trying to find a compromise, because we don't really know how they live and how they park and how they drive into this driveway. And I'm not sure we can solve the driveway problem at this point, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you. Commissioner Allen, your comments?
So this project has been disappointing for me every time. the proposed extension onto the back just doesn't seem cohesive. I don't even know why somebody would want to develop it in this way with the stairs going up. That it just doesn't seem like a reasonable solution to me. I would definitely back up the garage because of safety concerns. I don't know why the applicant would even want to attempt to back out of their driveway. And it saddens me that we just continue to see solutions that don't seem to fit the property. And so I'm struggling with this one.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Locke, your comments, please.
I'll be brief. Thank you, other commissioners here, because I agree with you. This is a really hard property. It's a tiny little lot, and it's in this unique place where it's on one of the busiest streets in town, a very steep street, as was mentioned, a dark street at night. I would love to see compromise. I would love to find a way to make this happen. And I do fear for the property owner trying to back out if that's what you end up ultimately doing. That, to me, I would be moving my garage or my carport, as was mentioned, to the house so that you have space to be able to maneuver. But I have nothing to add.
Thank you, Commissioner Locke. You know, we didn't go to the neighbor to the east. Would have been nice to see the view from their window.
We did in
We did it.
December.
Yeah, we did it in December, but it's changed now.
Yes, yeah.
It's changed.
They didn't want us.
They didn't want us to come in
Yeah,
there?
we offered.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
And then I noticed in the photograph doesn't show the netting. So when was the photograph taken? Before they, in between netting examples, or?
I would have to confirm with the
Well,
neighbor.
it wasn't it was a photograph they supplied?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because I want to, be able to see what's there, to understand your perspective. And at this point, I don't feel like I can, because I can't see the netting, so I don't know how much of your view is going to be taken away by this proposed addition. The one way we usually deal with that, if there is an impact on your view, is to ask the applicants to lower it. And as Commissioner Dell says, it seems like the opportunity here is to excavate lower into the site. Now, I don't know all the particulars of it. We're just reviewing this right now. There could be other circumstances which may not allow you to do that. But it would seem like at this point, when we're just giving direction, this isn't the final, this is just concept, it would be worth exploring lowering this down into the site with some excavation. And that may mitigate an impact to the neighbor to the east. With regarding the driveway, it's not within our legal purview to require you to provide access to your neighbors to go across your property. And so our only concern here that I see that we have is a finding to make on safety. Obviously, their backing out on the ocean is not safe. So it seems to me that the direction at this point should be to explore how to make a situation with that garage so you have an opportunity to turn around on that property. I realize it's a really small piece of property, but you can take advantage of the right-of-way to do that. So maybe pushing it back to the north might provide some more room or opportunity to turn around in front of the garage. I'm not exactly sure why it's being proposed right where it is. There again, it may have to do with the grade. But like I said, we have a limited time to look at these things. But that's my direction, that you explore lowering the addition in the back, and that you explore changing the garage location so you have more of an opportunity to turn around and go out of the driveway into Ocean with the front of your car. Those are the only comments I have. And we have a resolution from staff, which, I'm gonna allow the attorney to come up at this time and make additional comments, but we're not here to argue this. It's just basically giving us information. This is just direction. That's all this is.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry I was rude before. I didn't mean to, but there was the factor of the excavation that kept getting
Well, all you have to do in the future is just request some additional time. I'll always give it to you.
Okay, thank you. They have explored the issue with regard to excavation in the back quite extensively. It's the tree that's back there that also gives the view that they're talking about from the window. To alter that tree is to alter the view, is to alter all of this. So it's a balancing act that they've been trying to do between how high the building can be in the back to accomplish the goals that she has for her property, and along with maintaining the integrity of the property, maintaining the integrity of the view, maintaining the tree. And so I wanted to throw that tree into, because it wasn't being considered. So I do apologize for raising that. With regard to the safety issue in the driveway, she completely agrees that something needs to be worked out with the neighbors in terms of the driveway, but that has nothing to do really with this planning commission and this planning issue on the location of the garage. That safety issue exists from the configuration of the properties and has been there all along and has been an issue. And I understand that the applicant, that the middle property will be submitting a plan for the city to remove one of the trees so that the driveway can be put in there to accommodate everything that you've talked about. And so that will come up in the context of the application to remove the tree. But it's not a tree in front of her property, it's a tree in front of the property in the middle. And that person's not here and not part of this. So it shouldn't be a reason to deny Ms. Mardani's plan, but it is an impetus to try to solve that driveway problem and to reach some resolution that where everybody's safe on that. So she's not opposed to it, but it shouldn't have anything to do with whether you approve the plan or not. And I think those were the comments that you made where I can add some factual information.
All right, thank you. We
If you have
appreciate
any more questions, we'll be happy to answer.
All right. Are there any questions for the attorney? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And like I said, I'm going to allow the public. Does the public want to make any additional comments? We don't want to, restage stuff, but if you have some additional information to give us, why don't you come forward? I'd like to actually ask you, come on up, where that netting impacts that window view you showed us.
I appreciate that. I appreciate this opportunity. So if you could put up the picture again of the kitchen window. And I do remind you that in November, you guys came to the house and were able to walk around the lot. And I just didn't think, I thought you were just, it was pretty busy schedule today, and thought, you already had seen the property, been inside in November. Maybe you weren't here, but had a good look at, and saw exactly what we're depicting right there. That's where the rear addition is going to, it's going to basically obliterate that western view. And this was taken, around 5 o'clock, right? You could see the sun, and it's just a remarkable, I love trees. It's just a spectacular view. I could compare this to an ocean view because it's just the way the light filters through those two trees, and one's a double trunk, the one on the left.
Right, I understand, but what I want to ask you is specifically, you see that center mullion in the window? At what level is the netting at? Is it like in the bottom third, or is it halfway up, or is it 3/4 up, or
Oh, this picture is actually taking it. It's not straight on. You can see it's kind of a little off. The picture being taken a little off to the right. So it's, if you were towards the other side of this window and looking out, you would not be able to see any of this view. I mean, it would be gone. It would be just a mass, just a wall right there. And so, the rear addition is going to be like 2/3 of that window, both sides. So one pane plus half of the other pane, and it's going to be, and the shade and the impact of our solar and the sunlight and the views. I gotta remind you, my mom is here. She's Nina Boyd. She loves this view. And it was the main selling point. It was hard. We went to a lot of houses, and this one she just fell in love with. And this was the view that she fell in love with. And so, I mean, I'm just here to let you know that this is a greatly appreciated view, and we would really, I think the excavation, I'm glad you guys, the commissioners mentioned it. I think it's a win for both sides, because then you saw the picture. It's a more architecturally appealing project if it's a straight shot, a straight line across the ridge. So I'd be able to add more windows. You could see that rear addition has got no windows, and I feel bad for the applicant that not be able to have windows in a room, in a large room. So if she were to excavate, and the applicant excavates, she can add windows.
Okay, thank you. We understand. All right, thank you. Time's up.
Yeah, thank you for your
All right, thank you.
Chair LePage, to get an idea of where that actually falls, is that umbrella,
Yes.
is that on the ground?
Well, I think realistically, we're going to have to go back and look at it. That's
Yeah.
all we can do. I mean, I don't have enough information here to make a decision whether it's significant or not. But this is concept. We still have time, so we're going to take a look at this again. Is there anyone else from the public that wants to make any additional comments? Now, I don't want the same points reiterated. What I'm looking for is additional information that's going to help us discover something that we haven't heard before. So it's not, I don't want anybody coming up saying the same thing they said before. This is about additional information. So if you have something additional to add, this is the time to come up. Okay, I don't see anybody. I'm going to close the public hearing, but open it back up to the commissioners. Commissioners, anybody else like to make additional comments based upon what they heard?
Can we see the landscape shared again? Because I think we can pretty much.
Stefan, you want to move up to your, yeah, you go.
I think we can pretty much guess where this is, right? It's, if you see, this is the existing roof here, and the new roof is supposed to be 2 feet and 3 inches above it, which is like somewhere here. So that's where the new roof is going to be. So it's the lower, it's 1/4. Your question, Michael. I think it's like 1/4 of this. So the sky and all that's going to be visible. It's just this part here will be closed, including the umbrella.
I agree, but until I see with the netting up,
Yeah.
I can't make a decision. I mean, I think you're in the general area. I agree, but this is a situation where we really need to see it, and we didn't see it today. We saw it in the past, but that was a different set of netting. We need to go see it. So at the next hearing before that, I really encourage the neighbor to invite us in and let us so we can go in there and see it, because it makes a big difference to us. We're really trying to see those impacts and how they affect you. So, I think there's enough said on that. So, any other comments or discussion? Commissioner Dells, you have any?
No, I think to reiterate, these are my comments, not everybody's, but that in the front, let's look. I would need to be convinced that whatever the configuration is safe ingress and egress for just the applicant, because that's what we can ask for. And I'm not convinced that exists right now. I'm not convinced. So I need some sort of study to show where you would, how you would manage a car. Maybe you need a turntable because it's a really small spot in there. And it's on this one too, I think you're right. It's just, we got to see it.
Yeah, and it sounds like the neighbors is proposing a driveway into their property off Ocean. Is that something you're aware of, planning? You're not aware of that, okay. All right, yeah, so I think from what I've heard, just to summarize here, Sounds like the commission is obviously concerned about the views in the back, but we need to see it. And then we're also concerned about making a finding that the position of the garage as it's presently located is going to be safe. Like I said before, we are required to make certain findings on detached garages, and one of them is safety. And so that finding needs to be made by the commission. So I think other than that, I haven't identified anything about this that requires. I mean, it doesn't sound like the commission has identified anything else, unless I'm missing something. So, get that. What do we have for a? So we have a resolution from staff to accept this, but the Planning Commission sounds like we're going to want to see additional information so that we can make a finding that the location of the garage is safe. And then we're going to want to it sounds like we can't really make a determination on the impacts of the view until we see that. So if the applicant, as the attorney said, they have extenuating circumstances for the safety of a significant tree in the back, that's going to eliminate the opportunity for them to excavate that lower, then that information should also be presented at the next hearing. So we have that information so we can make a decision on it. So I would add those two special conditions, that the applicant provide us with some findings to show that the location of the proposed garage, detached garage, is safe for access to Ocean Avenue, and that they provide us with additional information regarding the floor level and the height of the proposed addition in the back. Other than that, I would add those two conditions, and I'll make that into a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Delves,
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
Chair LePage.
Yes, thank you. The motion is carried. Okay. That brings us to our last item of the public hearing tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the topography section, yeah.
A moment here to clear out. Okay, we're going to move on to the last item in our public hearing. This is another design study. This is DS 23-171, the DOS project. This is consideration of a concept design study and lot merger for the demolition of an existing 2,301 square foot single-story family residence with a 479 square foot attached garage and 464 square foot second floor guest house, as well as 192 square foot accessory buildings and construction of a new 2,466 square foot one-story single-family residence with a 478 square foot detached garage. And it's located on Perry Newberry Way, or Sterling Way, and the corner of Perry Newberry. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the subject site is just shy of 8,500 square feet, currently developed with a 3,436 square foot, or 3,436 square feet of site improvements. The applicant is proposing to demolish these improvements and construct a 2,944 square foot residence, inclusive of a 478 square foot attached garage. This project also includes a lot merger in which floor area and site coverage bonuses are granted. And then as part of the lot merger, Forest and Beach Commission will be required following the concept hearing to determine the recommended tree density, as the site is over 8,000 square feet. That's just a requirement of the code. So to breeze over some of this information, the site does meet all of the applicable development standards, assuming that the lot merger bonuses are granted. It also meets all of the height requirements and meets the applicable standards for building and roof form. The more substantive discussion points in the report are: the applicant is proposing to maintain a non-conforming building wall that is currently located within the front setback. That wall's been highlighted in yellow. It is an existing non-conforming wall that is proposed to remain as part of the project, even though the project does constitute a full demolition. Staff is comfortable with the applicant maintaining the non-conforming building element despite the extensive demolition work, provided that the wall framing does remain. So the applicant did provide a statement to staff. This is via email, just to point out some of the key points. So it is confirmed that the existing non-conforming wall will remain, specifically the wall framing, and it's the applicant's intent to use the existing wall framing as much as possible to make the project cost effective. And then the applicant is proposing some increased rafter sizes, which will increase in small increase in height, and they are hoping that this will be accepted as a structural reinforcement due to the proposed roofing materials. So based on past practice, the Commission has authorized preservation of non-conforming building walls when demolition or substantial alterations of a non-conforming structure is proposed. So staff's recommendation is for the Commission to provide feedback as to whether the retaining a non-conforming portion of the building in the front yard setback is appropriate when the project meets the definition of a demolition. And then based on past approvals and considerations by the Commission, staff has prepared a resolution for concept acceptance. And then just to identify the proposed changes a little bit more, based on the floor plan, this line constitutes the line of the front setback. So everything below this line would be the portion of the building within the front setback. The top figure is the proposed elevation. The bottom figure is the existing elevation. And then the orange and the gray are the two overlaid. The orange is the existing elevation and the gray is the proposed. So you can see there are some alterations and modifications proposed. However, the applicant has indicated that that existing wall framing is proposed to remain. And then the other point of discussion is the existing encroachments. As we saw it on site today, there are a number of pretty substantial encroachments. The yellow highlights are walls that are proposed to remain. The orange are walls that are proposed to be modified. Staff does have a condition of approval for concept acceptance that states the plans shall be revised so that the existing right-of-way encroachments are proposed for removal as part of the project. And with that, staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt a resolution accepting the concept design study as described on the screen. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions for staff?
I have one.
Ms.
So
Brown?
what if we approve and then we get to the point where they're doing the demolition and that wall comes down?
That's a great question. Hopefully the applicant has a contingency plan. We would absolutely stop work order the project, and they would effectively have to bring that wall back to the setback line and remove that square footage and effectively design a new facade for the building.
So follow up, what if they find a lot of termites and rotten wood? And then how much?
So they should contact staff before doing anything. And I think we would evaluate the damage.
Evan's correct. I mean, what we would be looking for in that situation is the extent of the damage. This is why it's always important, to contact the department first when you realize that your plans are going to have to change, because we can look with the applicant team at the extent of damage and rot to see if there are repairs that can be done versus full-on demolition. Because as we talked about before in previous hearings, the whole concept behind non-conforming codes is that when a structure outlives its useful life, it's time to bring it into compliance.
Okay, any more questions for staff?
Could I have one more on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it was, so if, because in your presentation, you were looking for confirmation, affirmation from us that we want to continue the practice of allowing legal nonconforming, essentially this situation. And it was my understanding that the code is what allows this to happen, and that it's not a discretionary matter. So I was a little confused by the request for the affirmation.
Before you answer, can I just kind of add to this question?
Sure.
As I understand it, a nonconformity cannot be increased,
Correct.
right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So the Planning Commission has the authority to interpret the meaning and intent of the city's land use code. And the interpretation that we've taken so far has this type of practice can be done. However, the commission may find that in reading the code that, this type of demolition work or maintenance of nonconformities is actually contrary to what the code is actually saying.
And our position is not, it's certainly not a recommendation for the Planning Commission to do that. We just always like to make sure that the commission knows all of your options. I think if the commission were inclined to explore treating this differently in the future, one more appropriate way could be to as we're updating our zoning code through the design guidelines, is to give direction to, make a more explicit code to that effect, or change the code to that effect. I mean, this really has been our practice for a long time, and it's been pretty consistent, but certainly not coming with a recommendation to change that, just making you aware that you always have that option, because this is not one of those black and white things in our code.
Okay. Can I ask a question? Does the applicant actually know that when merging the two lots, the front of the lot changes? Do they know that?
Yes, so we've discussed it. The setbacks actually haven't changed. It's always been on Perry Newberry. It's because they are a single building site. So the lot is currently a single building site right now. If the lots were to be developed as two separate building sites, that's when the setbacks would be on Sterling Way. But because the lot is being used as a single building site, that's when it's on Perry Newberry. And because of the lot merger, it is maintained on Perry Newberry.
Yeah, but in the plan, I see that they haven't tried to come closer to Sterling Way. They're still staying within the 15 feet setbacks, right?
That's correct. That's a design choice by the architect.
They want to do it this way. Because I'm trying to understand why they would like to keep that wall. If it's just because they need square footage, they can easily get that by coming closer to Sterling, right?
Yes, I've discussed that with the architect. I believe he's prepared to speak to that.
Okay.
Okay, is that all the questions for staff? All right, I'm going to invite the architect to come forward and make their presentation.
Good evening again. My name is Anatoly Astritsov. I am the architect, and I'm here on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Tony Das. When my client bought this lot, he wasn't aware of the non-conformity. Actually, I wasn't aware either. And because of Evan's very good comprehensive assessment, he opened our eyes that it was probably for a long time existing house sitting on two lots which were never merged, and which was a surprise because there was one APN number. And of course, city always encourages to merge smaller lots to one bigger lot, and we accepted it and we applied for a merger. But this merger, as well as Evan explained, existing conditions was determined this lot as legal non-conforming. And the intent of my client was to just lift it up, make it look better, dress it up, bring some aesthetic elements to the house, but not to demolish it, to make it cost effective. What we wanted to do is to take out the studio above the garage, second story portion of the property, bring it, and this studio has a kitchen, laundry, bathroom, so we wanted to take it down and build as the same kind of function, but under the ADU name next to the house. So make it one story, smaller, not as bulky, and hopefully architecturally more appealing. But that legal nonconformity brought us to some restraints, and we hope that you will approve the restraints, because we don't want to move this wall, we don't want to demolish this wall, even though it's calculated by the rule as a demolition. It's just, I believe, a theory of the ordinance. To answer your question, what will happen if there will be something wrong, right? The intention of the client, as well as my intention, is to keep as much of the structure as possible, because it's money, right? Foundation and this wall, and hopefully, even if there will be some damage, like termites, somebody mentioned termites, maybe, hopefully it will be locally, not the whole wall. And we might replace maybe a few studs if it happens. But I think just based on the condition of the house, we do not expect any issues. And we do not increase legal nonconformity. All our new structures are outside of the limit of the front setback. And actually, if we're looking at the numbers, the living space will be reduced by, if we do not count ADU, will be reduced by 300 square feet for this project. And if we include ADU into account, the total square footage will be increased by 300 square feet. So it's not, I believe it's not significant increase. And if I may, to say my opinion about this right-of-way thing, and I know you discussed it, and there is a nice stone, Carmel stone wall, and they're quite high. I would say it's up to maybe 20 inches in some places, and there are also trees on that in that existing planter. And as a matter of fact, I spoke to a couple of neighbors when I was delivering my notices. A neighbor on the north and neighbor on the east, and they were quite supportive to remain existing walls as a part of a character or a charm of that Carmel nice cul-de-sac, and maybe as a compromise, because I know there is a condition to remove everything. If you remember, on this Sterling Way, right around this existing oak, there is a curved wall which goes straight to the existing laundry. So maybe we will leave this wall up to this point and then demolish everything else over the garage. That would be probably a very reasonable compromise.
Anatoly.
Yes.
So the wall in question, as I understand it, it's going to have some new rafters bearing on it? And those are going to be...
They will be rafters, right, because right now it's asphalt shingles, which has not a very heavy load on the structure. When we will bring a cap and pan clay tile, it will increase the load probably like 3 to 5 times in weight. And those existing 2x6 rafters just will not hold it.
So it's proposing 2x8 rafters?
2x8 or 2x10. We didn't do calculations
so there's
yet.
going to be a little increase in height.
Right. Like
okay,
maybe
and so then...
4 inches.
So then the other things that are left in that wall are windows and a door, right?
Well, yes, we will increase one opening as a living room window, and hopefully it will not.
You're gonna increase one opening for a window or door?
For the window, And we changing slightly the front door area. If maybe if Evan, you can pull it.
The front door.
Sebastian, would you mind flipping over really quickly?
Yeah, Perry Newberry.
Okay.
See that left side, two elevations. The bottom is existing, and you see that front door is under the continuous eave. We would like to make it
which
the left-hand side. Left-hand side. No, left-hand side on the bottom.
The bottom. That's
Yes.
the existing.
Yep. Exactly.
This is a non-conforming. It's going to look like that.
Yes.
It's proposed to look like the above.
Yes. We propose up.
So you're adding a little gable.
Correct. And
You're
brings
adding
up
a gable, and you're making
stone veneer.
the window to the
yes.
right bigger.
Yes. Correct.
And then you're changing the configuration of the next window a little bit.
Well, maybe yes, but it's basically in the same opening. Yes. We just add more uniform mounting bars to make it look more traditional.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to see specifically what's you're proposing to change. Okay. Do you want to make any more comments or
No,
any more
you have
any questions for
I'm ready to.
for the architect?
The windows, the big window in the middle, do you have poles in between the three sections, or is there any support there, or is it like?
Those are mullions. So there are 3 units which will be moved together. See that window down below? It's kind of the same thing. Yes, existing. See that like 3 sections of the window?
So there's some support in between, or not?
There are no support. So it's an opening in the wall.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. But yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And if you remember, it's a very forestry area. That's why we would like to increase, many trees and bushes. So we would like to increase a little bit of glazing to get some sun into the living room.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone from the public that would like to come forward and address the Planning Commission regarding this application? Is there anybody online, Leah?
No, sir, no one online.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comments, bring it back to the commissioners for their comments. Commissioner Karapotkoff, you sound like you had some thoughts.
Yeah, it's difficult to.
I guess the big issue here is that wall. If we're, I think we should probably focus our discussion, first of all, whether or not we feel that what they're proposing is enough to warrant them having to bring it into conformance with the current standards.
Well, I guess we need some reassurance that this wall is actually going to stay, because you have to look at the foundation, make sure that the foundation is fine, and that there's no termite or dry rot damage or whatever. And then in terms of the size of the windows, they may need to compromise on something smaller than what they want, because if you go that large of a window, you'll probably need to put metal on top. You don't know how it works. And then you'll need to basically rebuild the entire wall. But in general, I think I understand why people are doing that. I understand that they want to do cost-efficient construction, and that's a good way of doing it. I just don't know. Just don't know if that wall is going to stay or not, because once you start building it, especially with the heavy roof, like that's the reason I don't want to put a heavy shingle on my roof, because I know that the structure of the house is not going to sustain it.
Well, I guess, I'm going to jump in here, but let's get this discussion going so the rest of us can kind of take off from this. The question is, what they're proposing to do to this wall, is that enough, that it should be, it's increasing the nonconformity. That's the word, right? Mm-hmm. If you increase the nonconformity, then you have to bring it into conformance. So what are they proposing to do? The things that I see they're proposing to do is they're going to change the windows, they're going to change the front door, and they're going to raise the roof a little bit. Mm-hmm. So the question for us is that increasing the nonconformity? Now, the way I would think about a nonconformity is it's going to project further into the setback, or it's going to do something else which maybe the height is so high that somehow that's going to increase. In other words, if you put a second story on top of a one-story wall, that's obviously increasing the nonconformity. I mean,
No, in that sense, it's not
Yeah.
increasing it, no.
so that's, I just wanted to kind of get that in there.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Commissioner Allen, you had some?
So I think I would have a risk mitigation plan in place if I were the owner of this project. So I don't see that they're increasing the nonconformity. I think that most of that is just decorative additions. They may want to not have the gable over the front door, but if we decide that, increasing the window size and strengthening the nonconformity wall falls within the description of maintaining the wall, then I'm fine with it. I mean, to me, it's a beautiful project. I really do like what they're doing with the house, and I think it will be beautiful once it's completed. I just have large concerns about the ability to keep that wall.
Well, I'm just going to add, what we're discussing here is increasing nonconformity. Obviously, if they get into construction and that wall is full of rot, or there's some foundation situation like Stefan mentioned, that they need to come into the building department like now, because that's a whole different situation. And what I would think that it would be incumbent upon the architect and the owner to do a lot of discovery work before they even propose to, take off some interior wall coverings and make sure there's no termites in there, have a termite report done, get under the house, look at that foundation, see if it's still good. It could be cracked, anything that would lead to it being torn down. Once it's torn down, then I don't think it can be built where it was again. So, and it's a big deal. I mean, you got a big chunk of house there you're trying to save. I don't know what the dimension was, but it looked to me like 10 feet of house or something. That's, and that would totally change your floor plan. So, but that's not really what we're discussing here. I think what we're discussing is whether what they're proposing right now is going to increase that nonconformity. So, anyway, Commissioner Locke?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to agree with Commissioner Allen on that I think it's cosmetic in this case. So.
And Commissioner Gels?
Yeah, first off, I want to applaud the project. It's a really pretty house. You've achieved a really 4-bedroom, 4-bath, single-level home. It's a big home in a community that doesn't even have big homes and sometimes doesn't even like them. And it's not going to look like a big home. And it's really well done architecturally. I look forward to seeing it. As to the nonconformity, no, I don't think we are increasing the nonconformity. I think it's being reused for a similar purpose, and so I'm okay with it. On top of it, I know that part of the reason it's nonconformity is that that's viewed as the front setback, right? And I'm looking at it, as the side setback, because that's really how the house is positioned. And if it was a side setback, it would not be encroaching, and you're not asking to double dip and flip onto the Sterling encroachment. So your average setbacks are probably fine, and so that it's not important, but it just influences my thinking. And then, ask forgiveness, not permission. Ask permission.
My quote's going in the pine cone.
Damn, way to botch that.
Can we talk about gates?
Sorry, we'll give you a pass. Keep moving. Gotta get out of here.
Yeah. if you find stuff, get in right away to make sure you understand it and everything Michael said. Nice project, thank you.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I don't think what's being proposed is going to increase the nonconformity. Because, increase of nonconformity would be a further projection into the setback, proposing to put a second story on it, maybe a bunch of Oriole windows, something like that, but just taking a window out, putting in a different size window, moving the door a little bit, that doesn't really increase the nonconformity. Still a wall, you're not tearing it down. You may have to change some header sizes over those windows. But, if you, like I said, I would really encourage you to do some investigation there and make sure that that is a wall that you can use before you get down the road, and then it's going to be a lot of expense and a lot of negligence pointed at whoever did the designing, and we don't want that. So that's my feeling on it. So what do we have? We have a proposal for a draft.
Yeah, I have one question real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know it was mentioned with the stone wall in the right of way. And,
right.
Yeah, and, as much as I hate to say, I think it needs to come out. I think you've got the stone wall around the house that can be maintained or rebuilt after construction, but I think the right of way does need to be, it needs to be removed.
I was reading this nonconformity draft condition concept, except it says, number 2, nonconformity building description prior to scheduling for final detailed review, the applicant shall provide a detailed written description to the community planning and building department outlining how the nonconforming portions of the building located in the front setback are proposed to remain and not to be demolished through construction. So, yeah. And I would add that you should inspect that wall and foundation.
Again.
Did you want to come on up if you want to, if you got something you want to add?
Yes, just regarding this wall, you saw that big oak tree, which will definitely needs to be gone, right? Because it's probably in a couple feet from that wall, and the wall is at the highest point, which is probably close to 20 inches. So if you remove this wall, this oak will be gone on
Yeah, well, that's something for Foreign Beach and in city forester. We don't. That's kind of outside our jurisdiction.
And also we need to grade it, right, and expose erosion control issue. Maybe as existing condition, which was there for 50 years, and all the neighbors like it, you will allow to keep at least the stone wall along the Perry and Sterling Way around the oak, and remove everything else. Just asking.
Yeah, well, normally we have ordinance. We don't allow those types of things in the right of way, but staff could speak to that. I don't think it's a policy, it's an ordinance, isn't it? If it's an ordinance, we don't have a lot of discretion.
Yeah, the planning commission wouldn't be the approving authority on any encroachment permit anyway.
Yeah, that's something the city council grants. We don't grant encroachment permits.
But if you will put it as a conditional approval, then we have to remove it, right? So we don't have even a chance to apply for an encroachment permit. I don't understand those details. Maybe Evan or Brandon can clarify.
So the way we would write it would be remove the encroachment or obtain an encroachment permit from the city council for it.
Could we put a condition, obtain a permanent encroachment permit instead of remove the
No,
wall?
it's remove. We have this condition oftentimes is that you need to remove all of the encroachments
Okay.
unless you can get the city council to grant you a permit to keep
Unless,
them.
okay, so
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
yes, that sounds good.
Yeah, we have the number 4 condition says prior to scheduling, cease, shall, what does it say? Does it mention getting an enforcement permit?
No, we can modify it.
Pardon?
Yep.
Yeah.
Modify that, yeah.
Yeah.
You're saying remove it, but you don't mention to get the encroachment permit.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd agree.
Do you want to, is that enough? Or somebody else want to finish that proposal? That resolution?
I move to approve the resolution in our packet modifying condition number 4 to also add an or, obtain an enroachment permit from the city.
I can
Okay.
second that.
Did you have a question?
I said I could second that.
Oh, you said, I'm sorry. You gotta look at me when you say this.
Did I form it as a question?
I gotta see your eyes. All right.
Chair LePage,
We have a motion.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Just regarding the right-of-way encroachment, the way number 4 was drafted was intended to be prior to final details review. Since this now involves application of an encroachment permit, it might be more appropriate to just defer this until final details review.
Okay.
I just wanted the applicant to know that the door was open
Yes.
at this point, as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have
Yeah,
it in there so we don't forget.
They either remove it or they apply for encroachment permit.
We'll
So
modify
however
it
that-
accordingly.
However that needs to be worded.
Thanks, sir.
Okay?
Yep, we got it.
All right, so we're in understanding?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karpetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you. And I think that takes us to the director's report.
And
that
if
it?
you're okay, I will defer my report to tomorrow for our romantic
Good idea.
follow-up meeting.
I like that.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
we're adjourned.
Thank you, Chairman.
See, I was an hour off the schedule. You put on me, Robert. I was trying.
Second date.
We had a couple of things here. It's a good discussion.
Actually, it needs to stop because it's going to get bad.
Non-conforming
I already
stuff.
know where it's going. It's not good. It's not.